Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Hello, Rob.
G'day, Neil. How are you?
Going well, thank you. Now, the reason we have got you on today is I found out during the week that you've just returned from the United Arab Emirates. You got back on Thursday, I think I'm right. Is that right, or Wednesday?
Wednesday night, Thursday morning.
Wednesday night. And now you are doing what we've heard so many stories about, and that is you are, quote, in quarantine, unquote.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to flight crew that I've just learned about today that don't have to have a COVID test when they land in Sydney and then spread diseases.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's how they think the outbreak started here in Sydney, was flight crew do not have to isolate when they get here because they're here for less than 24 hours. So
okay.
I'm just like, and that's the theme of the whole pandemic, I think. It's the whole uncertainty and inconsistency with certain groups and certain states and certain countries that and travellers who just are just pushed and poked and prodded and don't have no idea what's going on, and that's exactly what's going on. So,
and it is also it also depends on who you are too. We go way back. I think it was April or early May where Kerry Stokes came back into Australia from Aspen, went over for some skiing, I think, went straight into Perth and then flew straight to Canberra and then flew straight back to Perth and never spent 1 second isolated anywhere. You're right about it's almost hypocrisy, but inconsistency all the way through has left the rest of us gobsmacked. So for someone who's actually living it like yourself, are you just confused or is there a little bit of anger in there?
No, I'm psyched for it. I come from Melbourne, so whilst I am in Sydney, I'm used to a lockdown, so I'm pretty good with that. I also have a business where I can work from home and on a computer. I'm not a tradie or someone that has to be outside, that has to physically be leave the home to do their job. So I'm lucky. I had a FaceTime call with a mate this morning, and he says, "How are you coping?" I said, "Well, I've got so much work to do." It's like, I'm very lucky in that regard. I'm not cooped, so I've got a distraction and I've got a purpose and things to do every day. But if I had to, if my business meant I had to physically be, away from home or away from a lockdown environment such as a hotel quarantine, that would just drive me nuts. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But nevertheless, I've done the right thing and put on a pair of pants for you guys this morning and teeth and brush my hair and put some aftershave on. So,
very nice indeed.
I've made an effort.
So, Rob, just one, because there'll be people going, well, you shouldn't be travelling overseas anyway. Just sort of take us through your work, and I'm sure we're allowed to name your business. Assured Valuation, is that the name of the business?
Yep, so Assured, I've been a valuer all my life, and when people ask me, are you a valuer? I tell them I'm a valuer. They say, oh, property. And I said, no. And they go, well, what then? And I said, I value assets. So whenever you hear of one company taking over another company, there's always a valuation involved. It's normally the business, the real estate, and the assets. And the assets involve all the manufacturing assets. They could be the fit out in retail shops. They could be and it could be it's manufacturing, it's healthcare, it's amusement parks, it's any physical asset or business asset. So, other than the land and the buildings. So, and there's a lot of that around, as you can imagine. So, and that could be government assets as well, infrastructure, etc. So, I've been working in accounting firms for half my career, Big Four and Next Four accounting firms, as I like to call them. But set up on my own a couple of years ago, and it's been a great ride. So,
and to give some sense, I know a couple of times you and I have spoken along the way, and full disclosure, we went to school together in 1876. So I know that you've been to places like Sweden to value a ship. And you valued, I think, one of the fleets of aircraft recently. So the reason you had to go to the UAE is because, you can work from home, but there's an element of, it's been hard to value a ship in Sweden sitting on your backside in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, I would have thought.
Well, working for Big Four accounting firms, or it was Big Five when I started, but it was Big Four when I finished, and I got to get on some amazing assignments. So, valuing the Eurostars in London, or England and France, valuing the underground subway cars in France, and SNCF high-speed trains in France, and the trams in France. Believe it or not, they have trams. It's called the T1 and T2 trams, much like we have in Melbourne. To value the Malaysia Airlines fleet of aircraft at the time of the MH370 disappearing was a rather interesting project. When they were shortly thereafter they were in administration, and I worked for the administrator on that one, and all sorts of things. So it's been a great journey, and I've seen some amazing things. And the UAE project, as you started saying, Neil, was a client has bought some steel mills overseas, and I'm helping them out. The finance team helped them out with that acquisition, and that finance team is based in Dubai. So COVID prevented me from running around the likes of North Macedonia, the Czech Republic and Romania, where places I've never been before, which would have been very exciting. It meant I was holed up in Dubai for about 6 or 7 weeks. So great, and sitting on the computer. So thank God for computers.
Absolutely. So you get out of the cab or drive a car or whatever it is to the airport in Dubai, and you walk through the front door of the airport on probably Tuesday. Walk us through the process to get you to where you are now in terms of the steps you need to take to make sure you're not bringing back something you're not meant to be bringing back.
Well, that's a good point. So leaving was probably more intriguing than coming back. But leaving no one knew what flights you could or couldn't go on. The application for an exemption to leave, to actually travel, was pretty interesting. It said the critical industries that applied were infrastructure, engineering and large-scale manufacturing. So I could tick all those boxes, and I got an exemption within 24 hours. So I thought, whoa. So all of a sudden I'm on the flight, and then go to basically a deserted airport at Melbourne Airport, and get on a plane with one passenger in first class, 3 in business, and only a handful in economy. Was rather eerie. I fly to Dubai, and there was, that's where then the confusion started. So I believed I was supposed to get a COVID test on arrival, but they said, you're from Melbourne, you're fine, you can go into the community. So I go out into Dubai, lived my life there for 6 weeks, and then coming back, there was no testing getting on the plane coming back, but I knew I was heading straight to quarantine, so that was always on the go, and I had to fill out a pre-arrival information online for the Australian government for that. But interestingly, there was a passenger sitting next to me, or across the aisle from me, and I asked her how long she'd been in Dubai, and she said, "Oh no, I live in the UK." And I said, "You're flying through?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm flying through to Melbourne. It took this flight came up. Well, it's through to Sydney. This flight came up." So I grabbed it, and I said, "Did you have to do a COVID test before you got on the plane?" And she said, "No." And I'm sitting there thinking, what? And she said, "I've had about 20 in 3 months, but no, I haven't." So she's on the same plane and the same bus and everything else. So as all the other, there's 20 passengers get on the bus and go into quarantine. But I thought that was amazing. So then when we get to the airport, you're all lined, it's all about document checking, temperature checking, everyone in masks, and it's, the Australian Defence Force are there, the New South Wales Police are there, federal police at the airport, etc. And then you go onto a bus and you have no idea where you're going. You do not know which hotel you're going to, even zigzagging through the city because of the roadworks and construction, in part, but I also felt like they were doing it deliberately to confuse all of us. And then,
and you're easily confused. I mean, you're Don Vale High School boy.
I'm normally good at directions, but it threw me quite a bit in the middle of Sydney CBD in the dark. And then we pull up at I can say the hotel, the Abora Hotel. And no one knew we were coming here until the driver obviously did, but he said, this is your stop. And there was just a plethora of Defence Force and a New South Wales sergeant came on the bus in full riot gear and said, these are the rules. You know not to leave the hotel. This is the way. You will drop your bag off. You'll be escorted to your room. You will not get a key. You will, et cetera, et cetera. So it was pretty much the riot act. And and you didn't touch your bag at all. The Defence Force personnel took you. There's 2 people escorted me to my room, took my luggage in my room, and walked out of my room and shut the door behind them. And there I was, no key, and no idea hardly any idea where I was at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't left the room since. So, but I have had the COVID test yesterday on day 2, and now I'm talking to you guys. So
yeah, Rob,
it's always nice to be the highlight of your week.
well, it was the highlight of my morning.
Well, I was just going to get around to that. Now, you're clearly a very conscientious valuer and much highly regarded by your employer, but you can't be working all the time you're not sleeping. So on the coffee table, is there a half-finished jigsaw at this stage, or a book?
A full cup of coffee, a notepad with some notes thinking what I might say in this discussion about uncertainty, critical industries, homeland security, and what I miss the most, and we might come to those. And, there is a half cup of tea and some mostly electronics gear. It looks like Neil's mobile radio broadcast station that I've seen on his posts from around regional Victoria. But other than that, no. But there is Netflix, Stan, Prime Video, and a few other things all queued up.
So you've got it. You're confident you've got 11 days worth of non-work related entertainment to stop you from climbing walls?
Yes, I have. I think I'm probably in a good headspace to do it. And a friend of mine did it, and a friend of Neil's as well, who he knows from Dunbar High School as well, who returned from overseas, did it. And I was speaking with him about it, and he said day 3, which is where I'm at now, is you sort of think, oh my God, I've got another 11 days of this. And but once you get to day 8, you realise you're on the home stretch.
Yeah.
The days whittle away pretty quickly. So
I reckon it'd be like running a marathon. The first kilometre you're going, how hard's this? And you get to about kilometre 7, you're going, I've still got another 35 of these to do. Yeah.
What's a tucker like, mate?
Well, surprisingly good. I was. I think our mutual friend Trevor, as Neil knows, who did the quarantine, he said if you eat everything they give you, he'll put on weight. But Trevor's built like a stick, but I'm built like a boa tree. So it's if I eat everything they give me, I'll lose weight.
Oh, there you go. It's a double bonus out of it.
But it's relatively good. Like it's conscious of the fact that you are leading a sedentary life and not moving so much. And, it's a high protein, low carb, brown rices and, chickens and steamed veggies. It's actually pretty good quality. I did as soon as I got here, I did a big Coles online order, which is arriving, any minute and may interrupt this broadcast, but of cereals and dips and crackers and fruit. But honestly, it's the food's been pretty reasonable. So I've been pleasantly surprised.
He has just got off an aeroplane. You understand?
Yeah, that's true.
and eating Middle Eastern and Greek and food for 6 weeks. So,
yes,
it's more healthy options being presented now.
Excellent.
That's for sure.
Well, mate, we've only got a minute or 2 left, but you said you'd written down a few things you missed. What are the top 3 things you're missing? And leave the family out of it, because otherwise it's embarrassing if you forget to put them on the list. So we'll assume that's a given.
The family is a given, but probably Melbourne opening up. So did all the hard yards in Melbourne, with the lockdown, and then to see everything relaxing now in Melbourne, and that's probably the hardest thing. And also it's becoming, because things are opening up, people are catching up. Businesses are meeting and convening for the end of the year. So there's a few things I'm missing. Christmas
parties is what you mean, isn't it?
Yeah. I've landed a position on the board of the Sandhurst Golf Club, which I'm very pleased about. But again, everything's now. I'm the sole person online attending board inductions and the first board meeting. So which I have to do from here in isolation. So it's Melbourne opening up is probably the main one, and going to restaurants with family and friends. I've lived in a restaurant for 6 or 8 weeks now, and I know the first thing I'm going to be asked to do is let's go out.
It's the irony of frequent fly points, isn't it? The more you get, the less likely you want to be to get on an aeroplane.
Yeah, You accumulate points for travelling, and the last thing you want to do is travel when you get home. So same thing. So yeah, having a meal with the family, I'm looking forward to the most, and seeing how Melbourne's changed. In 2 months since I left.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, we'll let you go because I know you've got plenty of things not to do. But thanks for joining us this morning on Two Blokes Chat. I wouldn't be doing it for quids. I would much rather. I know for work you had to do it. It would just drive me up the wall. You are doing it for quids. Yeah, good point. Well played. Hey, thanks for joining us, and we'll chat again, no doubt, very, very soon.
Great. Thanks for the
Good on you, Rob. Best wishes.
See ya.